Hello everyone, and welcome back to my No Buy Year and the next installment of Style in the Era of Influence. Today's question to ponder is, do fashion influencers do more harm than good? Now, before I get into today's outfits, I just want to qualify that with, I don't think fashion influencers are actively doing harm per se. I just mean in the quest for one's personal style. Is it more helpful to consume that kind of content, or is it actually not as helpful as it might initially seem? So let me scoot over and show the outfits of today. The first one that I don't actually have on is the Matilda Djerf inspired outfit. It's almost entirely pieces from Djerf Avenue, which became one of my favorite brands, and just in a practical sense is still one of my most worn brands today. So it's one of the tube top and tube skirt sets in hot pink, which incidentally I do like to wear. I do feel vibrant and alive when I wear hot pink, and earlier this year I was kind of grappling with wanting to wear hot pink more, but not being able to buy more hot pink items or not wanting to buy more hot pink pieces. So I was unsure of whether or not I should keep it as a color in my wardrobe, but I am just not sure is the answer to that. I'm not sure how prevalent hot pink will become in my wardrobe, but I am trying to remind myself that even just having one hot pink top is enough to enjoy this color. Anyway, so I have the hot pink tube top and tube skirt with the stripes and a blazer from Djerf Avenue. And this one is in the oatmeal color, I believe, or oat. I think I did that last time I talked about this. I said it was oatmeal when it was oat. So with the oat color blazer, I do have the matching trousers. I do sometimes wear it as a suit set. The shoes I wore in this clip were the Onitsuka Tigers in yellow, kind of as a nod to the yellow stripes of the skirt, but also as a nod to how trendy this specific yellow iteration of the Tigers became in this current time period. I'm not sure if they're out yet, but these were definitely the most often seen ones that I would be exposed to on social medias. I talked about it in the Everything I Was Influenced to Buy video. I actually have no regrets at all over these yellow Tigers. My husband actually has identical yellow Tigers, and they're just one of those fun matching sneakers that we own. So it goes beyond just the level of influence. He obviously wasn't influenced to want them and buy them, but they're one of his favorite pairs of shoes as well. Oh, and the bag I was carrying was the Polene Sim in one of the brown colors that was also heavily featured on social medias in the past year or so. It was possibly the second most trendy Polene bag. I'm wearing the first most trendy bag right now. And I initially, when this first came out, I saw it because I was already a fan of the brand Polene before it was trendy. And I saw this tote bag, the larger ones right there. And at first I told myself I wasn't going to buy that one. I was going to pass on that model because it wasn't the most practical for my needs at the time. Now, I have gone through some lifestyle changes where this bag in particular, the large one, has fulfilled some practical needs, going to work, putting sheet music in there, as well as, baby supplies and whatnot. It's not the most practical bag still. It doesn't have a zipper or close in any way, so you can't let it tip over, and it also doesn't necessarily hold the shape that it's advertised as, I did a whole video review on all of my Polenes, so I'm gonna stop talking about it here. Anyway, I saw both of these tote bags trending so hard that I eventually started obsessing over them, and I mean it when I say that. I'm not just saying I was obsessed, as is common to do these days. I was literally obsessed. Whenever I had to do something I didn't want to do, even when I had to practice my instrument and I was feeling tired, I would open the TikTok app and search the hashtag for the Polene Sim tote bag and just scroll through those and let them play while I was practicing my viola, which is ridiculous. The picture of that, how I thought I was getting anything constructive done, is totally beyond me. It's no wonder I haven't won an audition for a real job yet, right? But I was obsessed with that bag. And I was starting to tell myself, hey, when I do win a big orchestral job, I'll go ahead and buy that black bag because it'll be perfect for work to carry music in. And somehow I ended up with the bag even though I didn't end up with the job. So I tricked myself into some kind of loophole of buying that anyway. I think it was supposed to be my push present after the birth of my latest child. Talk about a horrifying way to talk about your kids, right? Anyway, moving on. It goes without saying, or perhaps it doesn't go without saying, that I value the birth of my children a lot more than the gifts that I receive out of them. And I deserve any and all judgment you may have based on how I'm talking about that. So let it rip if you feel like it. Just playing into the nature of how humans are so fallible and contradictory creatures. Where was I? Let me explain the outfit that I currently have on. I have on a similar version of that outfit, but in a slightly different way. And again, you might see the full body shot here. I have on another one of the Jerf Avenue tube tops. If you saw my wardrobe declutter or try on, you know I have like 10 of these things and they're not cheap. So my concept of price and how much I needed was totally skewed. I talked yesterday about how do you know enough is enough. I know for sure that I didn't know when enough was enough before doing a no buy year. So one of the tube tops, this one has little butterflies on it. It's kind of like that 90s Y2K. I have on my long denim maxi skirt, the black one with the slit up the front. And I hemmed and hawed over getting a long denim maxi skirt for a long time. And I purchased 2 of them and am trying to declutter one of them right now. So I kept the black one with the slit up the front because it does give me the vibes that I was going for. I feel like it's kind of uncool, but cool in my perception of it. And then I have on another kind of trendy sneaker, the Adidas Gazelles. I had these, wow, I'm probably flashing you. I had these before they had their trend moment. So my husband also has these ones. We bought these maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. And I think the Sambas had their moment. And then I don't know if the Superstars ever had their moment, but we have matching Superstars as well, which we got after our second child was born in their Zodiac year. So we got the shoes for that Zodiac year just because they were cool and we saw them at the time. We have these matching in the cobalt blue. That is also one of my core wardrobe colors. At least it's one of the colors that I really like to wear. Both of which, the sneakers and the color cobalt blue, started becoming more in the trends after I started partaking. So I am relieved about that at least there are some things in my wardrobe that are not entirely based on being fed the trends. And hopefully that's how I can continue going forward. Actually, hopefully I don't do many more updates like that in my wardrobe. I want to keep the same similar color palette at least. And I will navigate how things like that are added or subtracted in the future as the bridges approach to be crossed in a natural way. I'm going to leave that for the future. So skirt, shoes, tube top. I have the other Jerf Avenue blazer that I own. I actually own all 3. So they come in black, oat, and gray. And I have all 3. The black one I wear for work, for concerts. The black one was the last one that I purchased because I finally realized I should buy the black one. No, but I have been neglecting my concert black wardrobe as far as making the style feel like me. I kind of just had a collection of black clothing that I didn't really care about the style because it was work. So if I didn't feel like it represented me, if I didn't feel like my work clothes were cool, in other words, it was kind of okay because it was work and like people aren't judging how I look on stage and whatnot. But if I don't present in a way that I feel me about or happy about on stage, then inevitably I'll be eyeing new black clothing more often than I wanted to be. So I did eventually relent and get the black blazer because I enjoy wearing the other 2 in everyday life. And it made sense, one of the few times where buying something made sense in a real practical way, to add that one to my wardrobe and feel just as good, just as cool as I do in everyday life wearing these ones when I'm at work on the stage. And I'm pleased to report that that did actually work and did serve the purpose. The other blazers that I have a very unique blazer that I got off of Etsy with a scalped kind of collar, and it's very artistic in nature, but I can't wear it on repeat without feeling like I'm wearing it on repeat, if that makes sense. It's very distinctive. So I had that, and then I had a blazer that I got in New Zealand that was very slim fit. So again, it's so distinctive because it's so close to the body, it's so slim, and has a very specific look. It doesn't work with all of the bottoms or dresses that I like to wear in the same way that this slightly oversized one does. For some reason, for whatever reason, this silhouette of blazer doesn't feel like I'm wearing the same thing when I repeat it all the time. Or if it does, it's kind of reminiscent of how when men wear the same suit, it's not really offensive or boring. It's just a man wearing a suit. I don't really want to get into gender and fashion and expression and all that. So I'm gonna leave that one there. The last piece or pieces of this outfit is the Polene bag, which I'm gonna take off. This is the other trendy model, the number 10, the Dece. And again, I first thought I was never gonna buy this one, and then it relentlessly followed me on social medias. And as somebody with a Polene problem, when it started following me around as much as it was, all the cool girls seemed to have this one. It was just an easy trap for me to fall into at the time. So let's get this off the screen. And then finally, to complete the look of today's video, is some hoop earrings. Again, the brand is kind of an influence brand. It's Ana Luisa, but the product itself was perhaps more exposure influence than direct influence. I just saw this kind of medium chunky hoop. They're not too big, not too small. I just saw this kind of thing everywhere. I think it's a very clean girl thing to wear, hence the hairstyle today. I didn't address the little bit of elephant in the room with the past couple of videos. I did cut my hair. It's kind of a thing that I do after I have a baby. I've done it every single time, and I don't generally cut my hair otherwise. I have had haircuts in the past, but for the past 3 haircuts that I've had, it's always been after having a baby and then going through that whole hair loss process. And then when you have really long hair and it's falling out, it's like a lot of hair. So it was time. It's also summer. So I mentioned that I was going to do this back in my apicoectomy vlog, that I was due for a haircut, and maybe that would be a little treat for going through that horrible dental work. So I finally got my treat, and I did get a haircut. Not that you can see it in this video, but you've possibly seen it in the 2 videos before this if you watched those. So I have the earrings, I have kind of the clean makeup, and I have the lip liner. In my very first video on this channel, the introduction to no-buy, I was deep into this phase of watching TikTok, watching makeup, and there were a bunch of lip combinations going around. So people were sharing what they used on their lips, and there's a lot of I guess I'm just gonna come out and say it. There's a lot of people with lip injections on social media. The value of having big, kind of luscious lips is kind of in right now, I think, as far as what my algorithm was feeding me back then. I do not have big, luscious lips. I am not a very rounded person in general. I'm pretty tall and angular and kind of androgynous, to be honest. And I really envied at the time the look, and so I got some lip liners and I started kind of drawing in, you know, my top lip and kind of doing a subtle overline. I would not get lip injections or fillers for various reasons. I'm not sure this is a part of this conversation, although one could argue that it's an aspect of style. But I did fall prey to the idea that I can kind of give myself a little help or make myself look a little more in line with that beauty standard with the help of a lip liner. And in that first video of this no-buy year, I look at it and I think, wow, that girl looks like a clown. Like, there's so much overline. The shade is maybe not exactly right for me. It's the same one I'm wearing today, incidentally, but I think maybe I've done a better job of applying it, or maybe I'm just further away from the camera. So should I come closer? I don't know if I want to do that. So there's the lip liner on. Maybe all it is that I haven't gone so far above the natural lip line. It's really just serving as coloring in what would normally be a very colorless top lip. Anyway, so I have the makeup, I have the earrings. It's kind of clean girl, kind of general TikTok beauty standard inspired. Wow, that probably took way too long, and now we're gonna get to the matter of the video. Whether stylists and consuming style content is helpful in discovering our own personal style. I'm really going to draw from my own personal experience here and what I observe when I look back at my shopping habits and how I feel about my style, and say that I actually think for me, and in possibly many cases, watching style content is not as helpful as it feels. When we're watching content that kind of promises to educate us and expose us to new ideas, I feel like it scratches this itch in our brain. We love learning. Humans love to learn and be exposed to new ideas. And when we watch somebody talking about something with authority, and indeed, they may have authority. I'm not trying to dispel the authority of fashion influencers as a whole, but when we listen to people talk about these things through their own authority and experience, we love to take the information on. Let me bring it back to myself. I love to take that information on and then try to practice and apply it to my own life. My default setting is not to say, oh, that doesn't work for me. My default is to say, how can I make that work for me? And won't it be fun to explore that new idea? Now, this may not be your default setting, and so what goes to follow what I'm about to say may not be relevant to you at all, in which case I'm happy that you don't fall into that trap like I do. But when I was watching so many style creators who always looked amazing and they presented the styles that suited them and resonated with their identity for the most part, I would feel that kind of sense of, how can I make that work for me? I want to look like that. I want to give that aura of confidence in who I am and what I'm wearing. And I wouldn't just be watching one style influencer. No, I was watching a whole collection. And maybe part of it is just that I liked seeing all the pretty things in front of me on the screen, and too often fell into the trap of buying a piece of the pretty things that they were showing. But I would watch so many different creators with so many different styles and so many different body types, and a lot of them were not even remotely close to my style and my body type, if I knew what my style even was back then. But let's just go back to the body types, right? I would watch petite style channels, and I am not a petite woman. I'm 5'10", or you could say almost 6 feet tall if you want to stretch it a little bit. And a lot of these petite style videos are about how to make your legs look longer, how to look taller, how to take up more space with your outfits in a positive way. Because, you know, you're short in stature and some women would like to feel a little boost from their clothing. These aren't necessarily goals that I don't have. I think personally I have a longer torso than legs, and I would like to make my legs look longer as well. So that's why I like the high-waisted pants. I don't have any problem with the idea of your clothing bringing you confidence and a presence in the room, and I don't necessarily want to look taller or shorter in my clothing. So it's not that these ideas go against my goals, but when I see an outfit on somebody whose body type is not even remotely similar to mine, it was hard for me to reconcile that I was never going to look like that, even if I had all the same things. All I could see was that that person looked amazing and that I loved how they looked. And I wanted to be like that in some way. And the easiest way that was accessible to me was to just buy what they were wearing or buy some version. I didn't always just go buy the exact one. Sometimes I would be inspired to buy something, but even in that inspiration, I was inspired to buy something where I would have not been inspired had I not seen the content, if that makes sense. And I didn't evaluate whether the inspiration was actually constructive for me to add to my wardrobe in my life, whether it would work for me, whether it would look the same on me. And I didn't necessarily have the skills to know that either. I didn't have the eye to see, okay, that kind of silhouette on me will give this vibe. Like, that was not part of my skill set, and it still kind of isn't. I think a lot of these things one does learn through trial and error, but my point is that I was not approaching it in a conscious way at all. I was approaching it through the throwing a bunch of spaghetti on the wall and seeing what would stick, except in a lot of cases, the spaghetti was super expensive clothing, and if it didn't stick, what was I to do afterwards but be left with the process of dealing with decluttering and rehoming these items of clothing that I probably didn't need to buy in the first place. And then there were some instances where brands approached the influencers, right? So like, there was a big phase where Everlane was approaching influencers to showcase parts of their collection, and they would send them the clothes and they would style them and present them. Now, some of these influencers may have naturally chosen those clothes from Everlane, naturally chosen the brand. I would suspect that at least some of them would not. So in some ways, the aspect of the influence, the sponsor, kind of artificially inflates the presence and the quality and the style aspects of these brands that may or may not have reached my eyeballs had I not been watching the people that partnered with that brand. And the reason they partnered with them was presumably because they were approached and paid for featuring those products. And again, this is not about how influencers are wrong for doing that. This is about whether that kind of content is actually helpful for a viewer trying to improve their personal style. So in some ways, the waters were muddied by me watching so much of that kind of content. In the best case scenario of watching anybody who's trying to take you from point A to point B, I think the best case is if they can hold your hand while you make that journey. And I think there was quite a bit of content that tried to do this. So how to discover your personal style, how to discover your best colors. Inevitably, the examples shown would be more relevant to the person showing them. That's just how it is. I can only draw on my life experience and share my stories in a hope that they can relate to you. So in some ways, yes, this content is helpful. And I do think I learned a lot that I do apply to my personal style goals and intentions today. So I'm not trying to discount that or those aspects of the content that I would watch. But I think maybe the problem was more in my approach. So I wasn't viewing these people, these influencers, as coaches or guides who would hold my hand as I did the work. I would see the work that they were doing and think that they were doing that work for me so that I didn't have to. And then there's also a little bit of a consideration of trends again and style evolution in order to keep having content as a fashion channel. I do think it's pretty rare to see fashion channels that don't bring in many new articles of clothing or many trends, or at least comment on the trends. And I do love to watch people talk about why they're not buying new trends. And that kind of helps me reframe my thinking to look at new things in that way of, do I need this? What would this add? Would this have longevity? However, I think in many instances, a fashion influencer will either be, again, approached by a brand, sent new things, or they will be actively interacting with the new trends in a more involved way than perhaps the average person needs to in order to maintain their personal style. As an average person, I mean. At least for me, my eventual style goals is to have a personal style that has such strength of style character that it's recognizable not as trendy, and that I will be able to look at trending pieces and know which ones harmonize with my personal style and not the trends. Which ones are worth adding because they give me the sense of enhancement of what is already there in my style, not because I want to add something new necessarily. There's nothing wrong with going in a slightly different direction, but I think when we go from one place in our style and then take a big leap to another place, which looking at my outfits over the course of this week, you could say that I've done. In fact, I would actually say that yesterday's and before that were kind of in one style realm, and then today's and forward have been a big leap into another style realm. You can let me know if you agree with that. But I kind of went from classic, maybe French girl inspired because of the Cézanne inspirations, and kind of more put together and classy into a little more of the, I don't want to say cool girl, because I don't want to assume that I'm conveying cool girl, but like a little more of the Scandinavian, perhaps, relaxed, still like put together, but in a more loose way, if that makes sense. I really leaned into the sneakers in my personal life, just for matters of practicality, having a bunch of kids now, and also just because I like the look. And the sneakers perhaps don't work as well with the outfits I was wearing earlier in the week, or if I did wear sneakers, they would have to be the more classic, maybe the white Veja sneakers that I have. Anyway, back to the idea of style evolution and fashion influencers kind of presenting a constant train of minor or major style evolutions in their own content. Part of the other issue with this that impacted my spending habits is that I wasn't really working on the skills associated with expressing personal style. The skills of curating for myself, rather than predetermined aesthetics that I was seeing on my screen of entertainment. And in some instances of stylists or fashion people online that I would see, possibly myself included, not that I'm prescribing style advice, but there are some people that I see and I wonder, do they have a strong personal style? Do they know what their style truly is? Or are they also kind of interested in keeping up with the times and reflecting the trends of the times? And is that their style? Is their style to be currently trendy? And again, I could just be speaking off of my own experience where that's kind of how I was riding the waves of what I was exposed to. I was always kind of incorporating some of the new trends, whether or not I felt that they were true to my style. And part of that is just not having a strong enough concept of my own style. And still to this day, I would say that I feel not totally secure in the knowledge of what I would and wouldn't wear. There are some people that you can think about, style icons, if you will, that you can look at articles of clothing and say, oh yes, I do think Audrey Hepburn would wear something like that, and she would not wear something like this. I think Princess Diana would wear something like this, and not like that. I think Vivienne Westwood would wear... I'm just pulling names out of the air, because I actually don't know enough about style. I haven't done the style research into these people to know what they would or wouldn't wear, but I do know that feeling of looking at somebody and having an idea of their character and having this idea of what you would and wouldn't wear. And the problem is I don't have that as strongly for myself, the person I should know best and want to express and represent the best. I don't have that strong of an idea of that for me to be able to say no to many of the trends that fly across my radar. And that is the knowledge that I'm really seeking to get during my no-buy, especially when I'm not adding anything new, and then beyond, when adding something new becomes a possibility in my life again. So it's time to practice those skills and gather more information. On a positive note, I feel like I am seeing more and more of personal style content on social medias. I don't know if that's just my algorithm shifting because of thinking about these ideas and journaling about them and kind of talking about them loosely online. But I do feel like I'm seeing it more and more where we're bringing back the personal and personal style, and people are kind of demonstrating how they do this, where they get their inspirations from moments in their own lives or exterior art pieces or things that really resonate with their identity that aren't fashion related, and then translate that to their fashion and clothing choices. So this is amazing to see. I hope that this means that the world of fashion influence will become more helpful than it has been, at least to me, in the past. Maybe it's all my own doing for being on the wrong side of the algorithm, but I'd be curious to know if you think you might have been with me on this, or if I'm just alone in this algorithmic mistake of watching all this content and buying all this stuff that was recommended without really knowing whether it was right for me and my style. Before I close out this video, I do want to reiterate that not everything I was influenced to buy was bad, but a lot of the items that I did declutter were the influenced purchases. And I guess when I think about it, a lot of the pieces that I do feel like are truly me are items that I never saw on an influencer. Here I'm thinking about my purple suit, which may make an appearance tomorrow. My chunky yellow Onitsuka Indactus shoes, not the tigers, but the chunky ones. My Seattle dress that my husband got me when we went on a trip. And to some extent, even the Polene purses, because when I first started buying them, I had not seen them on any influencers. The last idea that I kind of want to revisit, because I don't think I've talked about it before, but I've certainly thought about it this year, where it's like in the movie The Devil Wears Prada, where, what's her name? Miranda? Miranda is talking to Andy about how the clothes that Andy wears as a non-fashion person are still dictated by the fashion people, the trends. The reason you have that sweater in that particular shade of blue is a very complex process in the fashion world. So I guess that's the other idea that I am leaving you with today. When pondering the question of whether the influences in fashion are more helpful in your personal style journey or not, how much of what we're seeing is dictated by some exterior force, some exterior brand with the motivation to possibly sell something? Can we make sure that when we're selecting the things that we do buy, that we're not being manipulated or swayed by these higher forces, even if they're higher sources of extremely fashionable people who we can still love and admire as sources of inspiration and possibly entertainment, but without falling into purchasing things that we don't truly know if we need. And with that, I'm going to stop talking for today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.